let's start the show. 200 grams of poolish, a mix of fruit yeast water and bread flour. We prepared it about 11 hours ago. It's ready. We're now going to drop all of it into the mixing bowl. Add 100 grams of water, 5 grams of salt, and 150 grams of bread flour. The hydration for this dough should be about 80%, so we can expect to handle a sticky dough. Okay, that's all for the ingredients. Simple, right? Now let's get to mixing them well. This may take a few minutes. Using our hand, it can be done faster. After a few minutes, you should expect the dough to look like this. The flour is fully hydrated and evenly distributed throughout. Cover and leave it to rest for 45 minutes. Okay, our 45 minutes is up. We'll dip our hands into a bowl of clean water. We're going to perform a set of stretch and folds. Pull up the dough as high as it allows, then let it fold down over onto itself. Next, rotate the bowl 180 degrees. We dip our hands again if necessary. Then we perform the same steps all over again. We do stretch and folds on each of the 4 sides. The stretch and fold method is one of the many ways to develop a gluten network. It works very well with high hydration doughs like this one. It takes just a few moments, yet each fold has a significant impact on dough strength. For this recipe, in one set, we do 4 stretch and folds, 1 for each side of the dough. Overall, we're going to do 4 sets with 45 minutes of rest between each set. We conclude this first set by covering it and leaving it to rest for 45 minutes. The entire stretch and fold process is part of the bulk fermentation. Bulk fermentation is one of the most important steps in baking. During bulk fermentation, we let the dough ferment in a single mass. During this period, most of the work is done by our helpful yeast. The yeast create organic acids that bring us wonderful flavors and help with the gluten network. The yeast also produce the carbon dioxide gas that puffs up our dough and makes it fluffy. We do our part during bulk fermentation by performing the many sets of stretch and fold. With each and every stretch and fold done during bulk fermentation, we help regulate the temperature of the dough and build up its strength through gluten development. One of the major benefits of this is that at each set, through direct interaction with the dough, we can assess the dough's development. If we feel the dough is weak, we can make the decision to extend the bulk fermentation period or add another stretch and fold. If it is strong enough, we can continue with pre-shaping. Usually with fruit yeast water, bulk fermentation can go from 3 to 5 hours. Of course, this bulk fermentation time is dictated by our room temperature, the condition of our fruit yeast water, and ultimately the desired dough temperature. Okay, this is the last set of stretch and folds. If you pay attention to the dough's development, you can easily observe that it's getting hard to stretch and fold. This is usually the moment we stop doing stretch and fold. You can try, but it's better to let it relax when it gets to this state. You may also observe that the dough has risen considerably compared to when we started. So it's always up to us on when to stop imparting unnecessary strength to the dough. So we just stop here. We're going to leave it to relax or move it to the fridge to retard. Retarding the dough has many benefits. It allows us to bake the bread at a later time. It enhances the aroma and taste as a result of the enzyme activity, and it provides our fruit yeast with ample time to propagate, so that when it comes time to pre-shape, you get a fluffy dough. Okay, this is quite bubbly. We want big open crumbs, so I will be very careful in handling this dough. Sprinkle a bit of flour to make it less sticky. Now it's time to flip it out of the bowl. It may be very slow in coming out because of the long and cold fermentation, but the dough will eventually drop out. During pre-shaping, we set the stage for the final shaping by dividing up the large mass of dough into smaller pieces. This division almost always ends up with lumps of mismatched shapes and sizes, some with small scraps piled on to even out the pieces. One of the main objectives of pre-shaping is to bring some degree of order to these chaotic pieces. By doing so, when we start the final shaping, we can start with more uniform pieces of dough. Pre-shaping also provides an opportunity to bring more structure and strength to a weak dough with a tighter pre-shape. So pre-shaping should be just quick and easy. There's no need to spend too much time on this step. It's just to get everything more uniform and prepared for the final shaping. You also don't need to make sure things are too tight and also not too loose. Just a medium ground of evenness is pretty good. We're also being very gentle. You can use the scrapers to straighten out the sides, but be very gentle because we don't want to degas it. We want a big open crumb, and that looks pretty good. Never shape your dough immediately after pre-shaping. The dough could be too tight and it could tear. We need to give it time to relax. It is usually referred to as bench rest. Bench rest brings back extensibility that allows us to shape the pieces of dough into their final shape. For this recipe, we're going to give the dough 30 to 45 minutes of bench rest time. Okay, the time is up. Let's get to the final shaping. So we'll first flour the surface of one of our pieces, making sure to properly coat it. Then, using a scraper, we'll go under it to pick it up and flip it over onto the work surface. Thanks to the flour we coated onto it previously, it should not stick. We'll spread it out a bit next, aiming for a rectangular shape. So pull out the sides, being very gentle in handling so as not to degas the dough. Once we feel like it's wide enough, we can continue with the shaping. First off, fold up the bottom edge up to a little more than the halfway point of the rectangle. Make sure it's properly sealed by patting it down and also making a crease with your fingertip. Once that's good enough, we're going to pull the other edge all the way down over that. Again, making sure that it's sealed, making that crease. For the final touch, we will further tighten the baguette by basically folding it in half with this motion. Put the thumb of one hand on the center, and then using the heel of another hand or the fingertips, we roll it over, folding the dough and also sealing the seam. Then, just using our hands, we tighten it a bit more like this, rocking it back and forth with our hands tucking the sides in. Then we're done. We can transport it into its proofing spot. This is just some thick cloth that'll help the baguettes keep their shape. We have one side shored up, and we properly dusted all of it with plenty of cornstarch. And once it's in, we want to pick up the cloth beside the baguette, pull that up so the baguette has ridges on both sides that can push it up. And with the next baguette, we'll put it beside that ridge. And when we're all done with all of the baguettes, we want to cover them a bit, then leave them to rest for about 1 to 1.5 an hour, or until they double in size. Now, around 20 to 30 minutes before the baguettes are ready, we want to preheat the oven to as hot as possible, which was 260 degrees here. Depending on your oven, your settings and baking times may vary, so you may need to adjust some of these steps to your own specifications. Okay, so when the oven is ready and the baguettes are also fully proofed, we just have one more step before baking. Scoring. Taking a sharp razor, we're just going to cut in a almost straight line on the dough, just making quick and steady cuts, and we're good. We also want to spray the dough with lots of water so that we can get some steam in the oven, so that the dough can open up more and also have a very crispy crust. It's a pretty important step to get that. And with that, we are done and it's baking time. We bake for 30 minutes at 260 degrees Celsius, or until the baguettes have fully risen and turned golden brown. The baking time is actually pretty short, and that's because these are mini baguettes. They bake very quickly. And that's it for these baguettes. It's best to wait until they've completely cooled down before cutting into them. They're absolutely delicious, crisp on the outside and soft on the inside. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching and bye!